Hey everyone, it's Deidre here. Let's be honest, podcasts are the thing right now, but I truly believe they genuinely work in sharing stories. I have the Gift of Gab, and that's no joke. This podcast allows me a platform to invite the people that I want to talk with and share our stories. I hope as a listener you gain something new or just a little bit of joy. So sit back, relax, and let's get to chatting. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the very first episode of Gift of Gab with Deidre. It's Deidre here, and you're just listening to me this episode because I wanted to give you a little introduction to my podcast. So thank you so much if you've tuned in this far. I really appreciate it. So today I'm just going to kind of give you a basic, format rundown of what to expect with this podcast, first and foremost, and second, give some special thank yous, my story, and we'll go from there. So, this podcast, I've always wanted to have my own podcast. That has been the dream for a while now, but I just didn't think it seemed feasible. But then I feel like there are moments in your life where things kind of come to fruition and you're like, oh, I actually could do this. And so this podcast just finally came about, and I said, if I don't do it now, then I never will. And I'm so thankful that I took the plunge and have done it this far. So thanks to Amazon for hooking me up for the equipment. So what do I expect from this podcast? Well, I just really want it to be a space where I invite people, or one episode it might just be me talking about what I watched on Netflix that week. Just a space or a platform for me to be creative in a sense of just using my greatest strength, which is talking. I do have the gift of gab. I've had it since I was a little girl. And now it's just recorded for the whole world to hear. But I do think that podcasts have something about them. I once heard, on an article I read, people are more apt to say now that they heard something on a podcast or saw something on Facebook than they are to say, oh, I heard on the radio. And that to me just shows the power of what podcasts have to offer and the world we live in. So I'm very excited. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Deidre Stevens, and I am 23 years old. And yeah, this podcast for me, I wanted to be something, everyone and their dog has a podcast now, and there really isn't a specific theme to this one necessarily. It's literally just, I'm going to invite the people that interest me, whether they're friends or family, and we're just going to chat. That's basically it. You'll find out very quickly that I love Netflix, Hulu. I love my dog who's sitting right beside me. I love my family. I love my friends. I love wine. I love a lot of things. But I just most importantly love life and making it to the fullest. And so sharing my story and sharing, other people's stories, I hope as you listen or as this podcast progresses, you're just going to hear something that maybe brings you joy or something that you can share with a coworker. You never know what you can learn from listening to somebody else. And that's what I really hope this podcast brings, is an opportunity for me to listen to other people's stories and get them out there for the world to hear. Or at least my friends and family that I hope are going to be avid listeners. So my brief little story is I grew up in a small town. That was that. But why a podcast? Maybe that's more important. My story of how I got to this podcast. I have had previous radio experience. I was very fortunate to work for intern at a local radio station here in Lincoln, which was a blessing in disguise. At the time, this one thing in my life that I had the opportunity, and looking back, I should have just lived every single moment because it flew by so fast. But I'm so thankful every single day to KFRX and Alpha Media in general for the platform, for the opportunity to intern. So I did that for about 5 months, and that made me realize really quickly I didn't want to go into broadcasting necessarily. So then that's when I got into the marketing industry. My senior semester at Nebraska Wesleyan University, I met a super awesome friend named Renee Jackson. She was the station manager at the PAC radio, and she kept telling me, you should do it. And I said, no way. And then she said we could go to Seattle together. And I said, okay, we'll think about it. And I've always wanted to have my own podcast. I've wanted to have one for quite some time. And I thought, well, the pack is a good first start to see if I would be into it. And so I had a show on the pack radio every Tuesday from 12 to 1 called Hot Takes with Deidre. And I loved that so much. I loved it a lot more than I thought I would. It was, once again, in a creative space where I got to play songs. And I started out just playing random songs. And then as the semester progressed, I picked themes. And those are some of my best shows. I have them all saved on my computer because I really formatted it to a T and it all made sense. So I played Broadway, I played Glee, and then my final show was actually on my birthday. So I got to play a lot of songs that I thought summed up kind of my birthday and my final semester at Nebraska Wesleyan. So that was super cool. So I'm really thankful to Renee and the pack for all they did for me. So, and then when I traveled to Seattle for the pack radio, they talked a lot about podcasts and things like that. And so, I knew this was always something I wanted to do. I do have another podcast affiliated with my work, but I still was like, I want something for myself. This is going to be my thing, that I can claim as my own. And so that is when, finally someone again mentioned to me in a meeting, oh, then you got the Gift of Gab. And I was like, you know what? I do. And that is the name of my podcast. And so right then and there, I wrote it down and bought the equipment from Amazon. And here we are today. So I'm very excited to take this next opportunity moving forward. I really think that this is going to be something very special for me and something I've thought about for a while. And now it's happening. So thank you so much for listening to this first episode. Stay tuned for more. If you think that you maybe want to be on my podcast, you got an interesting story, I'm willing to take just about anybody right now. Shoot me a message on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. And so how you can follow this awesome podcast is on my social media. I'm a hashtag wannabe influencer for sure. Don't we all in today's world? So you can find on Facebook the page that I'm making for this podcast. It's called Gift of Gab with Deidre. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter with the same handle, which is at Miss Deidre, Deidres, as in Stevens. So I encourage you to follow me on those platforms. I'm, of course, going to be throwing this out there and just hopefully sharing stories for more to come. But thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Shout out to all my friends and family for being so supportive of, encouraging and fostering my dreams. And here I am going to do this. And so cheers. I don't have a glass of wine. This is sad. I have some water. Cheers to this next adventure.